What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Prophecy Misfits Podcast. This is episode 371. Woohoo! Kids in the Sandbox. And so, yeah, we'll be discussing a few things happening over in the Sandbox. If you guys aren't aware, Middle East is on fire. So, yeah, not the usual fire. It's a little bit bigger fire, but yeah, we got some stuff that we'll talk about with that, along with a few other things too. We got some updates on a couple other things, but welcome in. This is what we do on Tuesdays and Saturdays. We get together and we watch for the crazy things that are happening around the world. And we're called to be watchmen. We're called to pay attention. We're called to look at all the things going on so we're not caught off guard, and we're keeping an eye and tabs on everything. That doesn't mean we know what everything is. That doesn't mean that we know where everything is going to head or where it's going, but it's just one of those things where we want to make sure that we're up to date on what's happening, so when events like what just happened in Iran take place, we're not caught off guard. And yeah, we kind of nailed that one. If you guys remember, it was about a week ago. I said that there was about 2 week. I was hearing whispers about 2 weeks. It's going to happen in 2 weeks, and we're dead center in the middle of those 2 weeks. And if you're on my Telegram, I posted last night or yesterday. I said keep an eye on the Middle East. It seems like something's about to happen. Reports there's some stuff happening that is not getting reported on. And sure enough, that night, kablooey, things started happening. So, yeah, pretty much expected for the most part, pretty much expected. And looks like the timing was about right when we thought it was going to happen. So cool stuff. But yeah, so what we'll talk about tonight, kids in the Sandbox. We'll be going over some of the stuff regarding the Middle East. There's actually another war happening in the Middle East that started a day before, if you guys didn't know about that, between Pakistan and Afghanistan. That actually was the precursor to what happened with Iran. So we'll go over a few things with Iran, all the details that we can confirm, and some other reports along that. So we'll go over that situation. We'll talk about how it could affect those who aren't in the Middle East, those around the world, specifically day-to-day lives, regarding fuel and gas and type of stuff like that. So we'll discuss what's going on with that. What else do we got going on? There's some interesting stuff regarding the timing of this attack, and it's how it coincides with the biblical event. So we'll discuss that situation as well. And that's always an important factor to pay attention on that. We'll talk about the update with what happened with Cuba. If you guys don't know, some Cubans came from the United States and some were killed. They were trying to invade Cuba, so we'll talk about that situation. We also got some updates regarding Russia, Ukraine, as well as with what's going on with that. And we also got some stuff regarding some lawsuits against the Trump administration and so on and so forth. So we definitely got a few things to discuss tonight. So hopefully everybody's doing all right today. Hopefully everybody's well, as well as you can be for the times that we're living in, to say the least. So, but yeah, welcome in. Glad to have you guys here. So let's go ahead and get into what we got for housekeeping.
Housekeeping?
No, thank you. Sleeping.
Housekeeping?
All right, usual spiel. If you guys can, like, share, subscribe, get this out to as many people as you can. It's not about views, not about butts and seats, but it is about getting the warning out to people and getting people to Jesus. That's why we do this. That's the whole point of this show and all that jazz. And so if you guys can do me a solid and like, share, subscribe, I would certainly appreciate it. Yeah, it's YouTube is still suppressing my stuff. I'm paying attention to the analytics. They're definitely shadow banning still. People are not getting notifications. People are getting unsubscribed. And they're not getting shown my videos and stuff like that. So please like, share, subscribe if you guys can, to get it out to as many people as we can. Also, if you want to, you can follow along on Rumble and Telegram. Those are my backup channels. If I get booted off YouTube, we'll be backup live streaming over on Rumble. So make sure you guys follow there. If you have that, also follow along on Telegram if you so choose. It's a way for me to post things that I can't necessarily put in video format. And so things like I don't post much news or anything on there. That's not really how I operate. But in the case, there's a rare case every once in a while that I will post something on there, like I did yesterday, saying keep an eye on the Middle East. Something's about to happen. And so if you want, if you have Telegram, feel free to follow along on there. And then also the best place to follow along, of course, is the WretchedWatchmen.com website. It's your one-stop shop to stay up to date on everything that's happening with the Wretched Watchmen world of things. You'll find the latest podcasts and live streams are there. The announcement page is also there. And the free book to download is also available there as well. So, make sure you guys go ahead and bookmark that page so you're always up to date on what is going on. And then if you guys like to support this channel and what I got going on, I got donation links down below, CashApp, Venmo, and GiveSendGo. This channel is not monetized. I don't make anything from ads, views, or anything like that. It runs solely off of your guys' generous donations. So if you guys like to support what we got going on here, those links are below. Thank you guys. Again, you guys are the ones that make this run. You guys are the ones that make this work. I'm just truly, truly grateful and truly thankful for all of you guys. So thank you for your support on all of that. All right. All that good stuff. Everybody good? Okay. Just making sure everybody's good. All right. It is Saturday. We usually do the Wretched Weather Report. I was not able to get to it. So it was just one of those things that got sacrificed because of the things happening right now. And I'm sure some of you guys who were here at the very beginning, we started late because I was trying to get some last minute stuff done. So we're not going to be able to do the Wretched Weather Report this week. I apologize. I just did not have time to do it. So we're going to skip that for Saturday, and we're just going to go ahead and get into don't even go there. We're just going to go ahead and get into what we got going on for the main meat of this show tonight. So we're going to start out with what happened before the Iran situation, because this is what took place one day before. So this was on Friday, and then Saturday, or it would be Saturday morning, the Iran situation happens. But this was a precursor, which I believe is playing a part into what's going on in the Middle East. Don't necessarily know all the details, but I do believe it is playing a part. And so we had this happened Friday. Pakistan bombs Kabul and Taliban strongholds. Hundreds reported dead and worst fighting between neighbors for months. And it says Pakistan launched airstrikes in Afghanistan on Friday, saying it had killed hundreds of Taliban forces and associated militants as conflict between the neighbors threatened to escalate into outright war. The bombardment included extensive airstrikes and artillery fire targeting military installations as well as major urban areas, including the capital Kabul and Kandahar, where Taliban Supreme Leader Habibullah Akhundzada, is based. The assault came in response to an attack on Thursday night on Pakistani border posts that officials in Islamabad said carried out by the Afghan Taliban forces and the officially separate militant group Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan last weekend. Pakistan carried out airstrikes on what it said were militant positions in East Afghanistan. Pakistani Defense Minister Khawala Asif, a civilian official who has limited power due to the military's dominance over policy making, wrote that it is now open war between Pakistan and Afghanistan. It's officially declared a war between the two. He also accused the Taliban of being a proxy of India, a reference to warming ties between Islamist group and Islamabad's arch rival India. So there's some other details on that, but we're just going to go ahead and go from there. So the reason why I think this is significant with what we saw is because of the ties that these groups do have to each other, specifically India. India, as we know, has a very good working relationship with Israel and is getting much, much stronger from here on out. We do know that India has good ties to Trump in the United States as well. And we do have some information. I'm not going to sit here and say it's 100% confirmed, but we do have some information that says that India is indeed helping supply Afghanistan and so on and so forth, the Taliban, because of what's going on with that. Even though Afghanistan and India both deny that that's not happening, there's been some stuff that shows that that actually is happening. So that would kind of show that the Taliban has some affection towards Israel and United States because of the India ties. Plus, we know the Taliban is a creation of the CIA and the Mossad anyway, so that's a part of that as well. But the other thing that we have is Pakistan, who is... they're kind of all over the map with who they're affiliated with and whatnot. But we do know that they've got issues with Afghanistan and Taliban, and they kind of have a bone to pick with the United States as well. So there's a chance that these groups may have been or may have gotten involved with the Iran situation unless this happened before. So is this possibly something that was kickstarted on purpose? Possibly. Is it something that just boiled over at an interesting timing? It's also possible as well. So I just want to make sure that we're on the same page with that. Then we have this. It says there's now open war with Afghanistan after latest strikes, says Pakistan's defense minister. And so it says Islamabad, Pakistan's defense minister early Friday said that his country had run out of patience and now considers itself in an open war with neighboring Afghanistan after both sides launched strikes following what Islamabad described as an Afghan cross-border attack. In a post, Defense Minister Khwala Mohammed Asif said Pakistan had hoped for peace in Afghanistan after the withdrawal of NATO forces and expected the Taliban to focus on the welfare of the Afghan people and regional stability. Instead, he alleged that the Taliban had turned Afghanistan into a colony of India, gathered militants from around the world, and begun exporting terrorism. Our patience has now run out. Now it is an open war between us, he said. There's been no reaction from the Afghan government officials to Asif's comments. Pakistan has frequently accused neighboring India of backing the outlawed Balak Liberation Army and the Pakistani Taliban. Allegations New Delhi denies. So of course they deny it, but there's actually some stuff out there that really kind of points to the fact that that is true. But this kind of flew under the radar, obviously, with what the whole situation with Iran. But this is something that we should keep in mind because this is another conflict that has exploded at the same time as the Iran conflict, which we'll go over how extensive that reach actually is. It's not as central as people think it is. And you'll notice that much of the Middle East is currently in a whole reshaping formation at this moment, which is could be, I want to say could be, because we don't necessarily know, but could be something defining for possible future events. And so on and so forth. But we don't necessarily know at this point. We don't know at this point. But either way, the Middle East, that whole Sandbox region over there is currently going crazy on this one. So, and of course, I got to start out by saying you're going to see every which way possible, both from the secular and from the prophecy community and the churches and the Christians and stuff like that, all coming up with different spectacle theories and ideas and whatnot. You're going to see just the whole gamut of it with this, because this is specifically the church's time to shine when it comes to just throwing out the same old stuff that they've been throwing out for 20 years, saying, here it is, this is it, this is it, this is it. And they've been wrong 20 years over and over and over again, and they continue to get these things wrong. So I want to start out before we even start going into this stuff, because people are always looking for some way, shape, or form to attach the Bible to something that's happening in the world, when that's not how it's supposed to do. We're supposed to look through the scripture at what's going on in the world and then see the possibility of it, but not say that it's for sure, because then we just make ourselves look stupid, and then we discredit ourselves when we're actually trying to share the gospel with people, because everybody looks at us and goes, well, you're the same guy that's been predicting something for 50 years and said that this is going to be it five to 10 times, and it never happened. So why would I listen to you about what you have to say about the scripture? And it hurts ourselves, but that's how it usually goes with this situation. So again, we're not looking to attach biblical stuff. Again, the amount of emails that I get from people that said, hey, did you look at this? It's clearly a sign for the biggest one I get all the time is the 10 Kings. It's like, oh, did you see what happened in Iran? 2 people stubbed their toe. Did you see? Here comes the 10 Kings. It's like, where did you get that from? And so stop trying to attach stuff. You make yourself look foolish and you hurt your chances of witnessing to other people. That's my little rant for this one. It's just crazy. It's the same stuff like we continue since we've heard Iran is 1 week or 2 weeks away from a nuke. Well, guess what? That has been the case since the 80s. And guess who started that? You know, the whole rehashed thing of Iran's 2 weeks away from a nuke? That was started by Netanyahu in the 80s. He is the one that started that whole thing. And guess what? He's still peddling the same thing today. So pretty interesting how that works. All right. Let's go ahead and get going into what we got going on in the Middle East. If you guys don't know, if you guys have been living under a rock, Iran was smashed by airstrikes from both the United States and Israel last night in what they call the Operation, what is it? Epic Fury, which sounds like the next edition of Mountain Dew that will get released. They have the dumbest operation names that I've heard. But again, what do you expect from Hegseth, who comes up with this stuff? But yeah, so there's a giant attack against Iran, a lot of damage and stuff. We'll go over the details and stuff as we get there. But again, we should not be caught off guard by this. We were expecting this. There's been a buildup for a very long time. But then something triggered and there was a lot of whispers and stuff happening 2 weeks. And that was a week ago. And then sure enough, here we go. So we'll start out with what's been going on and what's currently over there. U.S. military assembles the largest force of warships aircraft in the Middle East in decades. And this was a report a day before they actually launched stuff, but I think this is a good starting point. It says the Pentagon built up the largest force of American warships and aircraft in the Middle East in decades, including 2 aircraft carrier groups, including the flagship Ford. The aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln and 3 guided missile destroyers have been in the Arabian Sea since the end of January after being redirected from the South China Sea. And the strike group, which brought roughly 5,700 additional service members to the region, bolstered the smaller force of a few destroyers and 3 littoral combat ships already in the region. 2 weeks later, Trump ordered the world's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, along with 3 destroyers and more than 5,000 additional service members to head there. This will bring the Navy's presence in the region to at least 16 ships, and it dwarfs the 11-ship fleet that was there until the Ford's departure station in the Caribbean Sea. More than 100 fighter jets, including F-35s, F-22s, F-15s, and F-16s, left bases in the U.S. and Europe and were spotted headed towards the Middle East by the Military Air Tracking Alliance. Again, this was right before the attack actually took place. And it says it also tracked more than 100 fuel tankers and over 200 cargo planes heading into the region and bases in Europe in mid-February. Adding to that force, the U.S. has moved 12 F-22 fighter jets to a base in Israel. Satellite photos from Planet Labs PBC of Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan that were analyzed by the Associated Press showed more than 50 aircraft. And 6 of the military's early warning E-3 aircraft head to a base in Saudi Arabia. Those are key for coordinating operations with a large number of aircraft. In total, from what I'm gathering, there's roughly 250 United States aircraft there, and that does not include roughly 80 aircraft that are on the aircraft carriers themselves. So you're looking over 300 fighter jets and just aircraft in general, United States aircraft currently over in the Middle East right now. Surprisingly enough, this is actually pretty small compared to the last major event that took place, not the one just recently, but a decade ago. This is actually pretty small compared to that. Plus, we have 9 U.S. refueling tankers arrived at Ben Gurion overnight. This was right before the attack took place. This was one day before the attack took place. It says that at least 9 American refueling tankers arrived at Israel's Ben Gurion airport overnight as part of the United States' massive buildup of military forces in the Middle East. The reason why they were there as opposed to somewhere closer is because these are the ones that are refueling the IDF aircraft in the air. So the United States is refueling the IDF jets. This week, several American refuelers and cargo planes were spotted at Ben Gurion Airport, and 11 F-22 stealth fighter jets, along with accompanying logistics support planes and air crews, landed at Avda Air Base in southern Israel. There are now at least 14 U.S. refuelers deployed at Ben Gurion Airport. The tankers are likely to provide support for the U.S. fighter jets aboard the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier. Again, we got confirmed that these are actually for the IDF specifically. That doesn't mean that they're not helping themselves, but for the most part, these were for the IDF guys. And so somebody managed to actually make a map of where everything was sitting right before the attack as well. And you can see all of the ships that were there, the air defense deployments, and the regions that they're all kind of sitting in. So they literally had them surrounded with each aircraft carrier on both sides of what's going on there. So quite a buildup. One of the things that I was seeing, how I came to the conclusion that I thought something was about to happen in the Middle East. That's why I put that Telegram post out there. There was some stuff that was happening. There was reports out there regarding Huckabee sending the U.S. Embassy people in Israel, the non-essential ones, out. There was reports that Poland, the UK, and I think Germany also got word, and they started moving their people out as well. A couple of the indicators that weren't necessarily reported on was one involving India, because the Mahdi was visiting Israel, and they were tipped off. So while the Mahdi got there, they announced the removal of their people from that region. And then as soon as he got back into India, the strikes started happening. So that was one of the things that I saw. The other thing that I saw is all of the movements regarding the aircraft and the warships. They began positioning. And positioning is not something that happens until right before they're going to strike somebody. So it wasn't building up, it was positioning. This was the day before. Everybody, all these ships and stuff and planes were all getting in position for a strike. And so that was one of the other things I saw. There's a couple other things. There's a couple other things that I saw as well, but I don't necessarily know how to explain them. They're just things that I come across. But yeah, there's definitely getting ready to start this stuff off. Yeah, let's not mention him in the chat, shall we? Jeez, that dude has been wrong more times than I can count. So that's what we got going on. So massive military buildup. It's been building up for a long time. They got into position. The United States and Israel let certain people know in order to get their people out in regards to the incoming strike that was about to happen. And then it took off. So they started striking. The U.S. and Israel started striking Iran, and then Iran started returning fire of their own, which is where things start to really spread out, to say the least. And this is where it's kind of chin scratching. You can come up with some possible theories about why they're doing this, but then you can sit there and go, well, this still doesn't make sense, because Iran started firing not only on the U.S. and Israel, but started firing upon all of the Gulf states as well, including Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. And it says Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and UAE, the U.S. military bases in the Gulf that Iran targeted. And it says it's an all-out war. The U.S. and Israel have launched a joint operation in Iran with explosions reported in several cities, including Tehran. In response, Iran has fired missiles at Israel and also targeted U.S. military bases in West Asia. Explosions were heard in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE. 4 U.S. bases in the West Asia were targeted as a response to the U.S. And Israel strikes on Iran cities. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, Al Salim Air Base in Kuwait, Al Dafra Air Base in UAE, and the U.S. 5th Fleet Base in Bahrain were targeted by Iranian missile strikes. And so Iran starts launching rockets, missiles, and drones not only at U.S. bases in the Gulf states, but actually launching it at civilian regions in these Gulf states as well, including Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia reserves right to response after Iran attacks Riyadh, Eastern Province. It says Saudi Arabia confirmed Saturday that Iran hit Riyadh and its eastern region with strikes, warning it reserved the right to defend itself, including by retaliating. Saudi Arabia expressed its strongest condemnation of the blatant and cowardly Iranian attacks targeting the Riyadh and eastern province regions, which were repelled, the foreign ministry said in a statement. In light of this unjustified aggression, the kingdom affirms that it will take all necessary measures to defend its security and protect its territory, citizens, and residents, including those with the option of responding to aggression. I think that's everything on there. Yeah. So if you guys don't know, even though Saudi Arabia tries to, I don't necessarily know the right word, because it's not like they try to stay neutral or anything. They have very clear objectives and where they stand. But they're one of those, I guess you can call them a smooth operator. They're very good at just kind of playing people in order to get what they want. And Saudi Arabia is really kind of the group there in that region that kind of manipulates all the states around them to fulfill what they want out of the deal. But with all of that in mind, Saudi Arabia has always been against the regime in Iran. They've kind of just played nice, the best that they possibly could, but you have 2 different groups of Muslims going at each other, the Shiites and the Sunnis, and they don't like each other. And so Saudi Arabia has always been against the regime in Iran. And so they'll publicly put stuff out. I'll show you in just a second. They'll publicly put stuff out where they're in support of Iran and making sure that there's peace in the Middle East. But then behind the scenes, they're one of the controllers that make sure that they're making moves in order to remove the regime that's currently there. So that's important to keep that in mind when it comes to this. And so continuing on, luxury Dubai hotel hit as Iran launches retaliatory strikes across the region. And so it's actually increased just recently. Iran is launching stuff at the civilian regions in Dubai. Like they're targeting hotels and apartment complexes or condos in Dubai, because they don't do apartments there, they do condos. But they're hitting places in the civilian regions in there too, which is I'll tell you why it's a possible reason why they're doing it, but still at the same time they're basically just, we're going to make everybody an enemy at the same time, which, again, we'll get to in just a second. So the luxury hotel in Dubai was hit as Iran launched strikes across the region in retaliation for a massive and ongoing attack against it by the U.S. and Israel. Video verified by the BBC shows a fire raging at Fairmont, the Palm Hotel. Thick black smoke rises into the sky. Dubai authorities also said 4 people were injured in a blaze at a building at the Palm Jumeirah area, and that the fire was brought under control. The statement did not go further into detail on the incident. Elsewhere in the region, Qatar, Bahrain, Jordan, and Kuwait, all home to U.S. military bases, said that they intercepted missiles fired towards them. Huge plumes of black smoke were also seen rising from an area near the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet in Manama, Bahrain. The extent of the damage is unclear, and the U.S. has not commented. In Doha, Qatar's defense ministry said it had intercepted several missiles, apparently targeting the Al Udeid Air Base, the largest air base in the region. And this is the U.S. Navy 5th Fleet in Bahrain you can see it got hit pretty hard. Massive damage over in that region. But yeah, there's a lot of reports that they're hitting civilian places. They're also hitting hotels where they know U.S. officials are staying. And they're using drones, which are getting through air defenses. They're using missiles and rockets that are getting through air defenses. I'll go over that in just a second. But yeah, they're definitely expanding their targets. Iran is expanding their targets of where they're hitting. We also know, I don't have stuff right now. Again, there's a lot of stuff that's still coming through, but I saw right before we went live that they're smashing Trump-owned properties in the Middle East as well. They're going after anything owned by not only Trump, but also by affinity partners, which is Jared Kushner's stuff. So Iran's targeting those in particular as well in that region. And so we have this. Again, this kind of shows some of the stuff we've gone over in the past already, but it's kind of puts it all together, showing that Saudi is saying one thing publicly, but working things behind the scenes privately. And it says, push from Saudis and Israel helped move Trump to attack Iran. U.S. intelligence assessment saw no imminent threat, but regional allies argued that now was the time to strike. It says Donald Trump launched Saturday's wide-ranging attack on Iran after a weeks-long lobbying effort by an unusual pair of U.S. allies in the Middle East, Israel and Saudi Arabia. According to 4 people familiar with the matter, as Israeli and U.S. forces teamed to topple Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei after nearly 4 decades in power. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman made multiple private phone calls to Trump over the past month, advocating a U.S. attack despite his public support for a diplomatic solution. This is stuff that we covered a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month ago at this point. Again, it's hard to keep track of when all this stuff comes out, but we covered that. And it was interesting because we went over one article that said publicly they're in support of maintaining peace and they want to work with Iran. And then we saw some reports that said that Saudi was indeed working behind the scenes in order to urge the United States to strike. And so, sure enough, it appears to be correct. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, meanwhile, continued his long-running public campaign for U.S. strikes against what he views as an existential enemy of his country. The attack came despite U.S. intelligence assessment that Iran's forces were unlikely to pose an immediate threat to the U.S. mainland within the next decade. It's interesting because they took one dude, high-up Navy guy, put him at he was vice president of the Chief Joint of Staff, and he was only there for, I think, 60 or 90 days. And they relieved him of his duty and sent him back down to where he was before because he came in and said, don't do this, don't attack, don't do it. And then they didn't like it because they want a bunch of yes men, and they immediately sent him back down. And so there's been a lot of assessment, both from military and lawyers, that says, don't do this. And they just did it anyway, kind of like with what they did with Venezuela. It says now Trump will bear the risk of the bet he has placed that a major military operation conducted from the air can achieve political goals on the ground. History says not going to happen. And we'll talk about that too. The Saudi push for an attack came as presidential envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner pursued negotiations with Iranian leaders over the country's nuclear and missile programs. All of those talks proceeded. Riyadh issued a statement following a phone call between the Crown Prince and Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. The Mohammed would not allow Saudi airspace or territory to be used in attack on Iran. In his discussions with the U.S. officials, however, the Saudi leader warned that Iran could come away stronger and more dangerous if the United States did not strike now, after amassing the largest military presence in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. Again, that's the stuff that we covered a couple weeks ago, where he was making it very clear. He says, if you're going to do it, you need to do it now. Do it. We need you to do it. Do this now. And he kind of got egged on. Keep in mind that Trump's allegiance to the Middle East is very, very strong. It's, again, his allegiance to Saudi Arabia and Qatar are right up there with his allegiance to Russia and so on and so forth. So we got to keep that in mind. Mohammed's position was reinforced by his brother, Saudi Defense Minister Khalid bin Salman, who held closed-doors meeting with the U.S. official in Washington in January and warned about the downsides of not attacking. His brother has been a lot more outspoken than Mohammed has, but again, MBS has to maintain his position, and so theater. The Saudi leader's complicated position probably reflected his desire to avoid Iranian retaliation against his country's vulnerable oil infrastructure. We'll get to that in a second. Weighed against his view of Tehran as Riyadh's ultimate foe in the region, said those familiar with his thinking. Iran, dominated by Shiite Muslims, and Saudi Arabia, led by Sunnis, have long had a intense rivalry that has generated proxy wars in the region. Following the initial U.S. attack on Saturday, Iran did retaliate against Saudi Arabia. Riyadh issued a furious statement condemning the attack and calling the international community to take all necessary and decisive measures to confront Iran. Okay, so one of the things is why would Iran expand and start attacking all of these Gulf states? Because you're basically signing your death warrant at that point where you're not going to have a relationship. You kind of had a relationship with these groups. You've fringe, but you still had something, a workable relationship. Why would you just throw it all away in one fell swoop? Again, it doesn't necessarily make much sense, but its possibility is they're striking all of these regions, specifically the rich civilian populations that are in no way, shape, or form prepared either militarily or civilian psychologically for an extended war. And so if you continue to put pressure on those places, the people are going to start getting frantic and they're going to start panicking and so on and so forth, which means those Gulf states might start putting pressure on the United States, who are very, very friendly and have many relationships and working deals with Trump and his family and so on and so forth. They might start putting pressure to stop an attack. Now, again, it's possible, but I don't know. Again, the risk doesn't necessarily outweigh, or the reward doesn't necessarily outweigh the risk on that, but it's possible. So I'm just giving you something that I've seen that is possible in that area. So, but beyond that, I don't necessarily know why they would do what they're doing on that. So we'll just have to wait and see. Again, a lot of this stuff is just waiting and seeing what happens. Again, that's usually the best tactic. Don't start attaching yourself to theories and start buckling yourselves to speculations and stuff like that, because you're going to be led astray. And at that point, you're either going to get led into a whole bunch of disappointment, or you're going to start putting yourself in a position where you're going to start believing things. And then when the truth comes out, you're going to throw away the truth because you attached yourself to something, and don't do that. So just keep that in mind. All right, moving on to the next part, we're going to take a look at what's going on with the Israeli side of things. And distraction to the bases. They don't need distraction, because we'll go over it in a second. Cindy, I see your comment. We'll go over it in a second. They don't need distractions. They're striking the bases perfectly fine. There's a massive air defense failure by the United States, and we'll go over that in a second. So the distraction thing doesn't apply to this situation. So taking a look at what's going on in Israel, every single pinpoint you see happen. This was I want to say 3 hours ago. I can't remember exactly when I got this, but this was 3 hours ago. Every pinpoint that you see is an alarm for incoming rockets and missiles. So for those who are saying that Iran's not getting retaliatory shots off, they're full of excrement. They are. They're getting plenty off. And you're seeing a lot of sirens and a lot of take shelter notification in Israel. And I can tell you that Tel Aviv is getting hammered. And I don't mean rockets coming towards Tel Aviv and then getting shot out of the air. I mean, Tel Aviv is getting hit a lot. And I'll tell you why when we get to that in a second, but let's stay focused on this for right now. So this is what's going on with Israel as of 3 hours ago. There's a lot of up and down. So there's going to be times when it's full red. There's going to be times when it's just a couple, and then it'll go full red again. Then it's just a couple. It's just how this stuff works. In response, we got this 160,000 reservists called up. The Israel called up 160,000 reservists, including 70,000 on Saturday. They called them up. The IDF has begun a series of steps to reinforce its defensive capabilities alongside continuing attacks in Iran. Keep in mind, they got like Houthis and whatnot also joining the fray against them as well. It says, in recent days, including this morning, the Israeli Defense Forces mobilized approximately 160,000 reservists, primarily to reinforce the Air Force, border defense units, and home front command. The military is also preparing for the possibility of incoming fire from Yemen and Iraq in light of the planned continuation of attacks in Iran. The IDF Operations Directorate also initiated a broad reinforcement of ground and forces across all sectors and regional commands. This includes the deployment of special forces and large-scale reservists called up to strengthen readiness for a range of offensive and defensive scenarios. Significant reinforcements are also being directed to the air and naval forces, along with an increase in available firepower systems. So they went ahead and called up a whole bunch of reservists to strengthen their home front defense and borders and intelligence and all that type of stuff. They called up, I think they did it in three phases. They called up about 5 days ago. I think they called up a couple more about 4 days ago, and then they called up 70,000 today, or it would be yesterday there now because of their, anyways. On Saturday, they called up 70,000 for that as well. So Israel definitely has more threats around them, obviously, because they got some other neighboring proxy groups that could start lobbing stuff over at them as well, including what Iran is still managing to put on them as well. But what I do want to point out is a connection, timing, and its connection to a biblical event that we read in the book of Esther. And as we know, Israel likes to attach a lot of things to specific things, whether they're actually biblical or whether they're like Talmud or Kabbalah or mystic in their way. They like to do a lot of timings according to what they do on there. And they managed to do one with the event of Purim. And so I want to go over this as well, just in case there's people who don't know about this. So timing, Purim, and Amalek. And so this strike, Israel and U.S., their strike, they struck Iran just before Purim, which begins March 2nd through the 3rd. So sundown Monday for them begins this event. And they also struck on 9/11 of the Muslim calendar, which is 11 Ramadan 1447, which was February 28th, 2026, which is pretty interesting because, well, for anybody who's looked into 9/11 that happened here in the United States, you'll know that if you actually dive into it, you'll see that a lot of the connections for that include the United States, Israel, and Saudi Arabia, which is pretty interesting. So Israel decided to go right before Purim, and we'll talk about why that's important in a second, as well as the 9/11 of the Muslim calendar. Purim is the Israeli celebration of the foiling of Haman's plot to annihilate the Jews in a single day, written about in the book of Esther. So if you read the book of Esther, you'll read about there was a plot by Haman to basically genocide the Jewish people in a single day, and it got foiled. It got foiled. So Haman's decree on that day mandated the annihilation of the Jewish people, and then a second counter decree. You can't, during that time, you can't eliminate a decree once it's been made. So a counter decree by Mordecai authorized the Jews to cluster together for defense and kill all who come to harm them. So basically it was Jewish people get together. I'm decreeing that you have the ability to defend yourselves and then eliminate anybody who comes after you or your property. And so what happened is, because of this situation, 75,000 Persians were killed and the Jewish people survived. And so this is interesting because right before Israel is about ready to celebrate Purim, which has to do with Israel defending themselves from Persians back in the book of Esther, they managed to do this attack right before they celebrate that, which goes right along with a lot of timing, biblical timing and mystic timing that Jewish people do. A lot of their events take place. Now, this is also pretty interesting because Haman is called the son of an Agagite, I believe that's how you pronounce that, which links him to Agag, king of the Amalekites, or Amalekites. There we go. My word, Amalekites. And Amalek is the father of the Amalekites, bent upon the destruction of the Jewish people, and is the descendant of Esau, Edom. Pretty interesting. And so this is a case of showing the descendants of Esau continuing to put their vendetta, their bloodlust towards Jacob, and it continues on, and we read about it there. And so Amalek is a descendant of Esau, and basically the Amalekites, they were born, bred, and their only accomplished, or their only target, their only goal throughout their entire existence is to eliminate the Jewish people. Does that sound familiar? Worth noting that the Amalekites, they don't exist anymore. That was something that was fulfilled. God eliminated them, wiped them off the planet. But the Jewish people still believe that the spirit of Amalek is alive and working in those who want to kill them. And so this is pretty interesting, especially since we know the whole Edom situation. The Edomites, they're connected to not only wanting to eliminate the Jews, annihilate them from the face of the earth. That includes the surrounding Muslim territories currently around the United States, or around Israel right now, but that also includes the Edomites when it comes to the synagogue of Satan, the fake Jews, those pretending to be Jews, but are actually the ones pulling the strings behind the scenes. And so this is pretty interesting that they managed to tie up this attack to Purim, and they attach it to what happened in the book of Esther. You guys can go read the book of Esther if you want to. Now, it's interesting because this is something that made mainstream news too, which is for those who like to pay attention and know that there ain't no coinky dinks out there. It's pretty clear that this is all part of the theater of things, to say the least. And so this is CNN, which, but it's CNN. It says timing of the U.S.-Israel attack on Iran bears symbolic meaning in Judaism, as Netanyahu references holiday of Purim. The timing of the U.S. and Israeli attack on Iran bears symbolic meaning in Judaism, as Benjamin Netanyahu referenced the upcoming holiday of Purim in his first statement. 2,500 years ago in ancient Persia, a tyrant rose against us with the very same goal, to utterly destroy our people, Netanyahu said in the story, which takes place in what is now Iran. Today, as well, on Purim, the lot has fallen, and in the end, this evil regime will too. The passage from the book of Deuteronomy commands that the ancient Israelites to remember an unprovoked attack by the nation of Amalek, located in modern-day Sinai and southern Israel, and to eradicate the memory of Amalek once the Israelites are settled in their land. So this is even catching wind in mainstream media, which is, again, I think a lot of it has to do with the theater of war. And of course, this comes with this. which this is still on the White House website, and this was posted June 25th, 2025. And it says Iran's nuclear facilities have been obliterated and suggestions otherwise are fake news. It says the world is far safer after President Donald J. Trump's highly successful, decisive precision strikes against the Iranian regime's key nuclear facilities. Okay. The reason why this is funny and ridiculous has to do with the fact of we were told in reports that this attack and the date of it was planned several weeks ago. It's confirmed that this was planned several weeks ago. Not to mention lining it up with Purim the way that they did reveals that, of course, they're planning it around that. So obviously that's true. But yet we're getting reports in other places, specifically from United States media, that says the attack wasn't planned up until the moment that it happened. And it was all based upon failing nuclear talks. Well, the problem with that is why are they having nuclear talks? And because they believe that since those quote unquote failed, they have to go in and eliminate the Iranian nuclear program. But in June of 2025, June 25th, 2025, it says that Iran's nuclear facilities were obliterated because Donald Trump is the greatest thing ever in this world, and he saved the world from the Iranian nuclear plant, and anything that says otherwise is fake news. Well, his own administration apparently is saying that this is fake news because that's why they had to go in and attack. Do you guys see what I mean? So we got reports that said this thing was planned and ready to go several weeks ago, and it's all tied to Purim. But yet the Trump administration is saying it has to do with failing nuclear talks, the same nuclear talks that apparently he obliterated last year. And anybody who says otherwise is fake news. So is this fake news, or is the administration saying fake news now? Because I'm not sure what it is. And again, we went over the fact with basic math that the bombs that Trump dropped last year to blow up the nuclear things, those bunker busters, didn't go far enough. They cannot go far enough to actually hit the production plants in Iran. So that was entirely a show. It did nothing. And so, yeah, that's what I mean. This is how ridiculous this whole thing is, and how you can't trust anything coming from this administration. Not to mention, as soon as the attack happened, Trump posted this on his Truth Social. Iran tried to interfere in 2020 and 2024 elections to stop Trump and now faces renewed war with the United States. So basically, he's telling you he's still butthurt about the election thing. And so this is his way of getting revenge. That's basically what's going on with that. Pretty interesting. Yamara nuke facility is supposedly 300 feet under a mountain of much granite. The Iranian nuclear facilities go deeper than that, and that's where they actually do the production stuff. Everything above it is not where the actual production's at, and the bunker busters that were used can't go down that far. So everything that was destroyed was basically nothing. And not to mention the material of the mountains that it's built under is some of the strongest, which actually requires more from the bunker busters, which means how far they can go down is actually goes up further. So there's no possible way that what the United States dropped on them last year to obliterate these things, it didn't. They can't go far enough to hit it. So, yeah, that was just a pure public relations lie. That's all that was. It's ridiculous. Anyways. And just because I want to, I'm going to go ahead and show this too. So this was Donald Trump, October 9th, 2012, says now that Obama's poll numbers are in tailspin, watch for him to launch a strike in Libya or Iran. He is desperate. And this was among a string of tweets by Donald Trump during Obama's administration where he kept saying Obama's going to start a war with Iran. He's going to attack Iran because he's losing the American people and losing the election and so on and so forth. Well, the same thing's happening with Trump right now. So pretty interesting how he's caught with his pants down looking like an idiot like he always does. And then Stephen Miller, this was on 11/1/24. He says, to anyone gullible enough to fall for the scummy media hoaxes, Trump said warmongering neocons love sending your kids to die for wars they would never fight themselves. Liz Cheney is Kamala's top advisor. Liz Cheney wants to invade the whole Middle East. Kamala equals World War III. Trump equals peace. What changed? What changed? Everything that they're claiming the other side was going to do, they're doing themselves. Why? Because they're all on the same team. They're all on the same team. That's why. Oh, my goodness. All right. So let's start going over points of what is going on with this thing. So let's take a look at the Iran situation. These are just little pieces and nuggets and things that I've found, and I just put them on this to make it easy so we don't have to go through a whole bunch of articles and stuff. So the Iran situation, as you can see, the first one I had to cross off. That's what I was doing. That's why I was late starting the show, because I had to correct that. So the Ayatollah Khomeini confirmed he's gone. This is one of those things that I want to make a point, because there was the situation where it came out, Israel confirms, has video evidence of Khomeini's dead body. Refused, but they said they will not release it. It's like, okay, I don't trust that that's confirmation. Then all of a sudden we get reports that Trump has seen picture of Khomeini's dead body. Confirmed, he's dead. Will not release the pictures. Okay, well, I'm not taking your word for it either. Usually in the terms of deaths, when it comes to these people, specifically when it comes to places like Iran or even like Hezbollah leaders and stuff like that, you can genuinely wait for them to come out and confirm the death of their own people, because that's what they do. They actually do confirm the death of their own people. It's just part of their belief system. And so I waited for Iran to come out and confirm it, and Iran has indeed confirmed that Ayatollah Khomeini is dead. So he's confirmed dead at this point, along with, I think, his sister was killed, and another one of his family member was killed as well in the same attack. So that's what I was waiting for. I was waiting for Iran to confirm it. So he's dead. I know there's a lot of people said, finally, we got rid of the guy. Well, he was about ready to go himself. If you guys know, he was, 89, I think. He was already in and out of the hospital with health problems. He was already on his way out. And the reason why that's significant and important is because the Iranian regime has a built-in system where they have all levels of leadership, four-way depth on it, which means if somebody gets taken out, somebody else is already ready to go in that position, and then there's three more people behind that person. And so Khomeini here has already had multiple people in line to take his position in case he's gone. So we don't necessarily know who's in control at this moment in time. But yeah, taking him out, he was going to go here real quick anyways. So this change was going to happen either way. So we'll see what happens with who's in leadership and what positions and whatnot. Something else about the Iranian regime and how they operate is all of the generals in their positions around Iran all have orders, even in terms of what we're seeing in Iran right now. So how it usually goes is there's a chain of command that passes their orders around to the military. When this happens and that happens, you do this, you do that type of situation. That stuff's already pre-planned and ready to go. It's kind of like a break in case of emergency. So the generals don't need to actually get orders from anybody. They don't need to get any information or orders or anything. When something happens, they have a playbook that they go to and they just immediately do it without any central command to it. So that's why you're still seeing, even though all this chaos is happening at the top of everything, that's why you're still seeing all this response and everything, is because they already have their orders even without anybody actually leading them. So pretty interesting how that works. But yeah, he's confirmed dead. Gulf states are threatening imprisonment. This is pretty interesting. Gulf states are threatening imprisonment for sharing videos of missiles and damage in their regions. And Iran has internet blackout, blocking most information and videos from getting out. This is so important. And I always make this an emphasis when it comes to this. First of all, Israel has put out a threat. It says anybody who is video recording or giving specific locations of where rockets and missiles and stuff are hitting, they will find you and imprison you for doing so, which they're threatening their own people from. Don't put out anything about what's going on. Now, there's stuff coming out here and there, very small amounts. You can barely find anything, but there's very small amounts that are coming out. And the Gulf states are doing the same thing. Bahrain's doing it. Qatar's doing it. I believe the UAE is doing it. They all put out things out there that says, do not share video, do not share location, do not do any of this. Otherwise, we will find you and imprison you for it. Now, some people are taking this as a situation of, well, they're trying to make it so there's not information getting out to the enemy on where to hit things. Okay, first of all, they know where to hit. So that's garbage. I think this has to do with restriction of evidence getting out. I don't think they want evidence getting out, whatever it may be. From what I'm understanding is not necessarily the Gulf states, but Israel is getting hit a lot hard right now. And I think they don't want that information getting out. I don't think that they do. Again, I'll explain why that's happening when we get to it. We'll get to that in just a minute, but it's happening. Now, Iran, they've had internet blockages since all of the uprising stuff started happening earlier this year. So that stuff has already been in place. So information getting out, I've tried finding even just fake stuff. Even the fake stuff's kind of light out there, but there's not much video or anything about the damage that's happening in Iran, which is, again, all this stuff is fishy. Why are they blacking all of this stuff out on both sides regarding it? It's fishy. It's a little stinky, which means any videos that's coming out is probably manipulated in some way, shape, or form, or is put out by the intelligence groups, government intelligence groups, wanting you to see what they want you to see, type of thing. So you've got to be very, very careful with what you're believing on this stuff. Be very, very careful. And it's interesting that they're wanting to withhold so much information. Damage in Tel Aviv, Gulf state civilian infrastructure, and U.S. warships is being confirmed. We went over some of this stuff already. Tel Aviv is getting slammed. Gulf state civilian infrastructure, we went over some of that stuff already. And U.S. warships are getting hit too. There's been confirmed on at least one, not a carrier, but just a regular warship, that it got hit by an Iranian missile. So that even though the United States Defense Department is coming out and saying that there's been no casualties or anything, there's been casualties. I can almost confirm that there has been American casualties. Trump has called this a war publicly. And a video that he put out, which a lot of people are really starting to say is AI, which I tend to believe them. It's the one video where he has the baseball hat on and whatnot. It's pretty much confirmed that that's an AI video. That's not actually Trump. But Trump in that video publicly said that this is a war. Meanwhile, there's been no approval for war from Congress, which is required. So again, he doesn't care about the law. He doesn't care about the Constitution. He's just doing what he wants to do. It's officially a war. Trump has also stated that the bombing campaign will continue for at least a week. He came out and said there's going to be uninterrupted bombing in Iran for the next week. So we'll see. We'll see about that. So expect this to go on for a little while, even though we're getting reports out there that says Trump's already floating off ramps to this thing. Pretty early to be doing that, but he also said that it's going to happen. It's going to go for another week. Let's keep it going. Trump states this is a regime change war. He calls on Iranians to rise up. And I can tell you from history that there has never, ever, ever been a regime change in a country that has been fulfilled by airstrikes. Never. Hasn't happened. A regime change requires boots on the ground. And so Trump is saying this is a regime change war, even though it's all airstrikes, which doesn't happen. He's calling on the Iranians to rise up. This is a terrible, terrible, very terrible situation, because that means that the IRGC will either backfill leadership, which again, they've got a command structure where they'll just continue to take their guys and put them in leadership positions, whoever that may be, or you're going to see a massive civil war between various factions in Iran. You're just going to continue to see what has been done in the Middle East time and time again whenever it comes to regime change, where it's just straight up civil war breaking out, slaughtering of people, innocent lives, and it goes on for years and years and years. So either there needs to be boots on the ground going into Iran, whether it's the United States, whether it's Israel, something like that. They'll have to go in there if they want to do this, or you're going to see nothing but massive bloodshed from all of the rising up. Yeah. Next up, Trump canceled his public address to American people, often a sign that something is or went wrong. So there was a planned public address for Trump today, and they canceled it. Now, when it comes to canceling public addresses like this, it usually means something went wrong, is going wrong. They lost control of something, and they have to cancel a public address for it. It's usually in the cases... I'll just say this. I've never seen a governmental leader cancel a public address in an event like this unless something went wrong. And this is usually historical when it comes to that, especially somebody like Trump, who has the biggest ego and is one of, if not the biggest narcissist in the world today. You would expect him to flaunt his stuff out there, saying, we did this, we did that, I did this, I did that, I'm the greatest, nobody else has done what I just did, I just took care of this person. And you realize that he wants the public spotlight, he wants the credit, he wants the adoration for all this stuff. And for him to cancel that means something went wrong. Something went drastically wrong. We don't know what, but that's usually what that indicates. Then we have More rumors that terrorist cells within the United States are awaiting the signal to begin attacks within the United States. This is the perfect opportunity for a false flag. We've been hearing rumors about these terrorist cells in the United States. Gosh, I'm what? 33? Go back as far as at least 20 years I've been hearing this. And all throughout my life, I continue to hear and see reports that they're about to do something. Oh, they're about to do something. Oh, no, they're about to do something. They're about to do something. And still nothing has happened. Still nothing has happened. And we're continuing to get that now. We're getting reports that the assassination attempt that was just about to happen to Trump, a week ago, that was an Iranian terrorist cell. And I'm like, what? And then I want to put it to you guys this way. I'm being told by some of the Prophecy Mafia teachers out there that the two greatest intelligence groups in the world, the CIA and the Mossad, managed to figure out what cities the terrorist cells are in, managed to figure out how big each terrorist cell is. I'm not kidding you. These guys are telling you they're in the Democrat cities. Each sleeper cell is 3 people big. The reason why ICE is out there has nothing to do actually with the illegals, but has to do with hunting down the Islamic terrorist cells. They managed to have all this information, but yet they can't bring forth the information of who these people actually are. So you're saying the two greatest intelligence groups in the entire world managed to get the details of which city these groups are in and how big they are and so on and so forth, but they can't determine who these people actually are? You have to be really freaking stupid to believe that. I'm sorry. I'm sure I have a couple people watching me right now that believe that. I'm sorry, but I just have to tell it like it is. That's the dumbest thing that I've heard. It really is. No, what I see actually in the forefront of this is if there is a planned false flag, to blame it on a terrorist cell in order to bring in whatever agenda that they have planned in response to it. It could be to bring, we're gonna unleash these terrorist things against our own people. Yes, governments have been killing their own civilians for since biblical times. Go take a look and read some of the stuff in the Bible. Governments kill their own civilians all the time for their own agendas. And Trump too, he's not some God, not some savior. He doesn't care about you. He will kill you the moment that he needs something. They will kill their own people as a false flag, blame it on his Islamic terrorist cell, and then be able to get whatever they want after it. Whether that's to expand Middle East conflict, whether that's to put martial law here in the United States, whatever they plan on doing, they will absolutely do it. But this idea that we have terrorist cells, I'm just done with it, man. I'm just done with it. It's Mockingbird media in the church. That's all I can say. I also have this, and I always do this as a reminder. I did this with the Russian situation. I did with the last conflict that happened. I always bring this forth, and I cannot stress it enough. War events are the perfect opportunity for an explosion of bad information, fake images and video. That could either be altered media, that could either be AI media, or that could be taking old video and picture from something else and saying that it's happening now. It doesn't matter. Fake images and video completely made up rumors. That's exploding all over social media. No, everybody's just coming up with stuff and saying this happened when there's nothing that can confirm that at all whatsoever. People just make it up and post it. Ungrounded theories. Again, people will take speculation and theory and present it as fact. The prophecy mafia is really good at that. But the secular groups do it too. They'll just take a theory, they'll come up with a speculation and say, this is what's going to happen, or this is happening. This is why. Whenever you see a video, it's always funny. Whenever you see a video that says, the truth about this, or this is why this is happening, whenever you see something like that, just stay away from it, because they're just making stuff up. That's all they're doing. And then societal manipulation. They'll take all that stuff. They'll take the bad information, the fake images and video, the made up rumors and the ungrounded theories, and they use that to manipulate society, whether it has to do with getting them to follow a policy, getting them to follow a politician, getting them to, in the case of the church, to go along with their program that they have built in. So you'll click and subscribe and so on and so forth, or if it's social media influencers, it's to get as many followers as they can because they get money that way. And so it's all about manipulating society. So just be very, very, very careful in this situation. You got to question everything when it comes to the information coming out, specifically when it comes to wartime events. You really got to be careful. And then we got this one. Some missiles being launched from Iran are different, evading Israeli and U.S. defenses, and are causing damage that they've never seen before. I've seen several things that I can confirm that this is actually happening. I've seen a video of, I know, but just roll with me. On the ground report from CNN of a dude showing the damage to an apartment complex that got hit in Tel Aviv, and he said he's talking to Israeli military guys, and they've never seen damage done like that before. They said it's like this, but it's not. It's something else, and they've never seen it. They didn't know Iran had it. And so Iran's launching stuff that they don't know what's going on. I saw a report from an Israeli news group, and they're saying they showed a different place and said that they don't know what this is. They've never seen damage like this before. Then I've also seen several videos of rockets and missiles being launched from Iran, U.S. and Israeli defenses, the anti-air defenses going up to stop it, hitting the missile. You'll see the defense rocket explode against it, and then the rocket gets faster and propels deeper into the thing. It just takes out the anti-air defense and goes straight back to the target that it's going for. This stuff, Iran's firing something different. Iran has threatened that they have things that we don't know about. And they've said that for a long time. And so it's just one of those things, they just, like kids on a playground pointing fingers and saying your mom jokes and stuff, just making stuff up. But in this case, it appears that maybe they actually do have some stuff that we're not aware of, because this is things that they've never seen before. So this is interesting. That's why I believe Israel is getting hit the way they are this time, is because there's a lot different munitions being fired at them that their stuff can't counter, which is pretty interesting, because that means this whole situation has hit a much different level than people were thinking and what they were expecting. But on top of that, this could be a foreshadow. Again, I emphasize foreshadow heavily right now because somebody will take this and run with it, but this could be a foreshadow for the events that'll happen prophetically when the church is gone and Israel is going to have to rely upon God to protect them and God alone. And so this is maybe a foreshadow of that. So something to think about. Along with that, U.S. countermeasures, the anti-air defense, the stuff that shoots down the rockets and whatnot, are showing significant failure against Iranian missiles. That's why U.S. air bases are getting slammed over there. That's why a lot of Gulf states are now getting hit because those Gulf states rely upon U.S. air defense systems and stuff is getting through. That's why a warship got hit. Maybe there's more. We don't necessarily know. That's why Israel is getting hit because their defenses aren't doing this. U.S. countermeasures are showing significant failure against Iranian missiles. Now, that's not just because of Iranian missiles, whatever they may be now, but this is also because United States Patriot defense sucks. And we know that because it's similar to what happened in Ukraine because the United States sold a whole bunch of those Patriot defense things to Ukraine and it just failed all over the board. They're just terrible. And so they're failing. Pretty interesting. We also have unconfirmed reports of Netanyahu flying to Berlin. Netanyahu may not actually be in Israel. He may be hiding in Berlin. We don't know for sure, but they tracked his plane. At the very start of the attack, his plane flew from Israel to Berlin. We don't know if he was on it or not. But if he actually did ditch Israel for the attack, that is pathetic. But what do you expect from a globalist? So, but he could still be in Israel. I don't know. But his plane is in Berlin. And then the last one I got for this is Iran has not targeted oil production or oil reserves in the Middle East that we know of. This is the one that I'm sitting here waiting for because this would be the last resort if Iran's about to fall. A lot of people are saying, why isn't Iran hitting those things? Why aren't they hitting the refineries and the production plants and the oil fields and the oil storage reserves? And why aren't they smashing these things both in Iran and in the Gulf states and all around the Middle East right now? If they wanted to hurt all of these people, why wouldn't they launch these things doing this? Because if they start taking out the oil production over there, the entire world is going to go crazy. You're talking consumer goods, you're talking food, you're talking economic, you're talking governmental, you're talking everything is going to start falling if they do that, because that's where most of the production is over there in the Middle East. Why aren't they doing that? Well, what I'm led to believe is that would be the last resort if, and this is important, if the Iranian regime, that includes the IRGC and all these groups, if they actually believe that they're about to fall, lose control of Iran, that would be their last resort, meaning it's kind of like a martyrdom situation. It's jumping on the grenade and sacrificing yourself and taking as many people out as you can with you. It's one of those things where if they start doing that, that means their control of Iran is over. So that's important to pay attention. If there's actually going to be a regime change in Iran, you can expect some type of retaliation against those oil production facilities. So keep an eye on that. That is important to watch. That would be a big indicator that something actually did change with the leadership in Iran. So keep an eye on that. Country darling, did they really close the Strait of Hormuz? No, they did not. I'm getting to that right now. Well, after this, we're getting to that. I'll answer that. So yeah, continuing on with this, it says defensive munition shortages to shape attack on Iran. So getting to the air defense situation, U.S. and Israel burned through interceptors at an unprecedented rate during last year's 12-day war. And it says limited supplies of critical defensive munitions to protect U.S. forces and allies from Tehran's missiles are likely to shape the military offensive against Iran, according to officials. The U.S. and Israel burned through their stockpile of interceptors at an unprecedented rate last year during last year's 12-day war, when Iran fired hundreds of missiles at Israel. Now the U.S. military is weighing the likelihood that Iran's retaliation will strain the supply of those crucial munitions while it struggles to replenish them. The magazine depth, military jargon for the stockpiles of available munitions, of the U.S. Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, or THAAD, anti-missile systems was of particular concern, said a regional military official. The U.S. fired as many as 150 THAAD munitions to defend Israel last year. They said it had ordered fewer than 650 of them in total since the system went into operation around 2010. What we got going on here? Yeah, nope, please don't share that in there. Thank you. Washington could easily expend a whole year's worth of critical defensive munitions in just 1 or 2 days of operations if Iran were able to launch multiple large salvos of missiles and drone attacks at U.S. forces in Israel, said Stacey Pettyjohn, director of the defense program at the Center for a New American Security think tank. The official said that there was little likelihood that the Iranian missiles would exhaust the U.S. military defensive munitions during combat, but discussions have focused on the need to preserve those munitions for other theaters, which could force Israel to take more measures to protect itself while the U.S. military shields its own forces and other allies. So this is significant because not only are we getting reports that these anti-missile defense systems are failing like crazy, but we also have the issue of the shortage of them. We're burning through them like crazy and our production can't keep up, which means if this extends, a long time, again, if this stuff continues during the week, and he says it's going to go for another week, but if we start going into a week and then 2 weeks, possibly a third week, and we're burning through stuff the way that we're doing right now, we're going to not only have failures happening, but we're going to run out. You're just going to run out of them, which causes significant problems after that. So not only do we have failures, but now we got shortages of them. Yikes. So this could be a problem. When Trump said that he's already floating off-ramps for the war, it may have something to do with this. He might need to ditch out sooner than anticipated because they're not going to have the munitions in order to sustain anything. And so if they do that, that's why this is so important. If they do that, if they ditch out early, that means that they just went and hammered a whole bunch of leadership and positions and things in Iran and didn't finish the job. Then you're still going to have the IRGC and that whole regime in control. You're still going to have the whole Muslim situation controlling Iran with all of this. And then on top of that, you probably just pissed off so many IRGC people with Iranian civilians uprising against them that you're probably going to cause even more of a massacre against the innocent lives there. Then you really you messed it all up at that point. So this could go south in so many ways if this does not happen quickly. I just don't see it happening quickly. I know a lot of people think that you could just go in and take out the Iran leadership quick and swift and they'll fold and all that stuff and just take care of it. That Iranian group there is built to to take hits. It's built to take hits and then still stay there like a red wine stain on a white carpet. That's how they're built. And so this could get ugly very quick. Again, we don't know. We don't know. I'm not going to predict anything. I'm not predicting that that's going to happen. I'm just telling you that that's an outcome if they ditch out quick and don't get their stuff done. And again, I just don't see this happening quick because that's not how that whole group is built. They're built to take the hits and keep coming back. So we'll see. Please stop putting people in the chat that are not affiliated with the channel. I don't know who these people are. I can't endorse them or recommend them. That's great that you like them. I don't know who they are. Stop putting them in the chat. Thank you. I knew this episode was going to bring a lot of that. I just knew it was. Okay. All right. Before we get, I'm getting to the gas thing here in a second, Country Darling. Before we get to that, I want to bring you guys this dude's name. The research that I've done, this dude's name keeps popping up. And I don't know if he's going to play a part in the future. I don't necessarily know if he's significant with what's to come. He's significant with what's happened in the past, but I don't know if it's going to be significant in the come. But I just want to give you guys this dude's name to pay attention to and just keep an eye on. This stuff pops up. I don't necessarily share a lot of this stuff with you guys when I'm just keeping an eye on things, but I want to let you guys know about this guy because keep an eye on him. Who is Ali Larijani? Coming in, he's top 8 at the center of regime change in Iran. Says Ali Larijani, a prominent Iranian political figure, is poised to play a pivotal role in Iran's future amid rising tensions with the U.S. and Israel. I just want you to keep an eye on this dude. In the midst of soaring tensions between the U.S., Israel, and Iran's speculations that Ali Larijani, an Iranian political leader, could play a central role in the regime change in Iran. According to New York Times, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, appears to have completed a strategy for the Islamic Republic's continued existence. Larijani, 67, is tasked with this responsibility and is likely to take charge of the nation. Interesting. Larijani, a prominent... I don't know why that was highlighted. My bad. It says Larijani was one of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps original members. He was Iran's principal nuclear negotiator and former chairman of Iran's state broadcast network. In July of 2025... Larijani met with Putin for security discussions. Larijani is considered to be close to Putin and was the mastermind behind the 25-year strategic agreement with China as well. This is interesting. Let's keep going, and we'll talk about it. Larijani is currently the Supreme National Security Council's secretary, appointed by Iran's President Masoud in August of 2025. Since he is not a religious cleric, he cannot be seen as a possible successor in the conventional sense. However, Larijani is now touted as the Islamic Republic of Iran's de facto leader. Larijani was responsible for putting an end to the recent demonstrations calling for the abolition of Islamic rule by using deadly force. He was managing nuclear talks with Washington before the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran on Saturday. Larijani was also controlling opposition and communicating with regional players like Qatar and Oman, as well as strong friends like Russia. According to the New York Times, Larijani is also tasked with planning how to handle Iran in the event of a future conflict with the United States. Now, this last part Just again, we don't know about this guy, but this is interesting. Journalist Barack Ravid noted that Trump might look to figures like Larijani to navigate a post-Khamenei reality and manage continuity with Iran's clerical system, given that the reports that the reins of power rest in his hands. So apparently Trump might look to this dude to be the leader, transition dude in Iran. And this guy has fat connections to Putin and Xi. The one thing I don't necessarily know about is how his relationship is with what's his face? Dude from Turkey. Can't remember. Erdogan. I don't necessarily know. I'm going to spend some time looking into this dude. But if he's got a good connection with Erdogan, and then you stack that up with Putin, that's quite a Ezekiel cocktail, to say the least. So just keep an eye on this guy, Ali Larijani, and we'll see what happens with that. Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I don't normally share stuff like that until I can confirm it, but I think that's worth keeping an eye on. Worth keeping an eye on. Everybody good? Are we all good? All right. Okay, country darling, let's get to it. U.S. Navy declares maritime warning zone across Persian Gulf. So let's take a look at what's going on when it comes to the oil situation, the Strait of Hormuz, which we've told that Iran's going to close. And how this could affect us. And so it says the United States Navy declared a sweeping maritime warning zone across the Persian Gulf region on Saturday after large-scale U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran triggered immediate retaliation from Tehran, throwing global energy markets into turmoil and forcing major oil companies to suspend shipments through the world's most critical choke point. The warning zone covering the Middle East Gulf, Gulf of Oman, North Arabian Sea, and the Strait of Hormuz came with an unusual mission from U.S. Central Navy Command. It could not guarantee the safety of neutral or merchant ships within the area. Some oil majors and top trading houses suspended tanker shipments via the Strait of Hormuz on Saturday. The strait carries approximately 21 million barrels of oil daily from Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, making any disruption a potential shock to global energy supplies. Okay, we'll get to the rest of this in just a second. So there was a major thing coming out. All the major media groups were reporting it. It was all over social media. It was flooding that Iran's closing the Strait of Hormuz. It's closed. Nothing's getting through. That means oil shipments stopped, cargoes stopped, food stuff stopped. It's just not getting through. False. What is actually happening, the strait is open, and it's a key strait. I wish I had a map for you guys. I just don't have a map, but it's where all the Gulf states are, and it's like a little hook up by Iran, and it goes back down to the major sea at that point, and the strait is that little hook by Iran. It's slowed down. It's specifically slowed down. It's still open. They're still moving stuff through. There's a lot of ships that aren't going through. We'll get to that, and we'll get to why in just a second. There's a lot of ships that aren't going through, but for the most part, it's still moving. It's just dropped significantly slower. And so that will have an effect on things, and we'll get to that in a second as well. So it says explosions were heard near Iran's Karg Island, according to Reuters, reported cited by Lloyd's List. The facility is Iran's most important energy asset. 90% of the 90% of the country's crude oil exports flow through the terminal, located 15 miles offshore in deeper Gulf waters. In recent days, the terminal had stepped up exports and drained its crude inventory, suggesting Iran may have anticipated the strikes. So they knew something was going to happen there. That's kind of the main artery of Iran stuff. So they went ahead and removed all of their inventories and so on and so forth. So we'll see if they kick it back up and keep it running. We don't necessarily know. Greece's Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Insular Policy issued an urgent advisory on Saturday, directing all Greek flag vessels to exercise maximum vigilance and avoid key shipping lanes. The European Union is withdrawing all non-essential personnel from the region, while the EU's Apposides naval mission has been placed on high alert in the Red Sea. Tanker Owners Association, Intertanko, issued an urgent advisory warning that Houthi militants, this is another aspect, Iran-backed forces that have previously targeted Red Sea shipping, may recommence attacks on commercial vessels. There are also concerns that Iranian forces could seize ships with American or Israeli commercial interests. The Houthis have come out and said that they're going to start attacking ships again in the Red Sea. So that's also something to keep in mind as well. If we jump down, says critical questions remain unanswered as the situation develops. Perhaps most significantly for global energy markets, Iran has not indicated whether it will be able to close the Strait of Hormuz, a threat it has made repeatedly over the years but never fully executed. The reason why they haven't been able to fully execute that is because it's almost impossible to do. That's the main reason why. So they continue to throw the threats out there. They'll do a partial shutdown or they'll slow it down for a couple days and then people get it back open. It's just something that you just can't do. Closing that off is near impossible unless you've got an arsenal that nobody else can deal with. While Iran possesses naval mines and has threatened to close the strait in previous crises, sustaining a prolonged shutdown would likely require repeated mining or missile operations under conditions contested by U.S. naval forces. The scale of any Houthi retaliation against commercial shipping is also unknown, as is the duration of the maritime warning zone now in effect across the Gulf region. So with this in mind, the strait is open. It's significantly slowed down with what's going through and how quick it's going through. There's some groups that aren't sending their ships through there. And then on top of that, the Houthis are saying they're going to start attacking ships again in the Red Sea. And so this could cause some serious issues when it comes to gas pumps. And this is something that affects a lot of people. I don't normally do this, but I'm going to do it now. Get gas before Monday. The prices are going to go up by before Monday anyways. But Monday, there's a chance that they're just going to skyrocket because that's when all the markets and stuff open. So get gas before Monday. Because it's probably going to go up significantly. To say the least. So on your way to church, after church, or just running errands tomorrow, go get some gas. Because you're probably going to start seeing gas prices go up depending on how long this whole thing carries on. We also have this. Iran throws oil markets into biggest crisis in decades. Global energy markets face one of their gravest shocks in decades as joint U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran and Tehran's retaliatory missiles across the Gulf disrupt oil exports from the world's most important producing region. The scale on the disruption will likely be determined by the duration of the conflict, but for now, the threat and uncertainty are already enough to severely impact flows from the region that accounts for 20% of the global oil supplies. 20% of global oil. We're at a slowdown, which means 20% of the world's oil is significantly slowing down, causing a serious hamper on things. That's going to cause prices to go up. And so the worse that gets, if it continues to get worse, again, we don't know. But if that gets worse, that means prices are only going to skyrocket from there. Barring a swift resolution, and that's not just here in the United States, too. That's all over the world. So keep that in mind. Bearing a swift resolution, oil prices will likely see steep increases when trading opens Monday morning. Benchmark Brent crude oil prices rose in recent weeks at around $70 a barrel, their highest since August of 2025, as investors braced for military confrontation in the Middle East. And so depending on how long this goes, means the prices at the pump is going to go up. That also means prices of consumer products are going to go up as well, because if the cost of the shipping goes up, because ships need fuel as well, so if that fuel goes up, that means the cost of shipping goes up, which means the cost of the price of the consumer item goes up, which means you're going to be paying more for all of that as well. There's a lot of food that comes out of the Middle East as well. A lot of sugar, a lot of wheat, flour, stuff like that comes out of the Middle East. So that stuff is probably going to go up as well on top of it. Adding on to the fact of insurance policies are now getting canceled and prices are being raised because of this as well, which means you'll have to pay for that as well. And this is important. Insurers to cancel policies and raise prices for ships in Gulf and Strait of Hormuz. Brokers say that cost to cover increased by much as 50%. So for the ships who had their coverages canceled, they're not going to go through the strait because they don't have insurance, which means they're on the hook for everything that they have. And that includes the ship itself, not only the cargo. So a lot of those ships that aren't going through the strait are the ones that had their insurance canceled. They're trying to get new insurance now. Other ones, the prices went up on the insurance for that, which means that cost gets passed on to the importer. The importer passes that cost on to the consumer. So that means we're also going to be paying higher prices because the insurance prices are going up. That affects everyday life for people. It says insurers told ship owners on Saturday that they would cancel policies and raise coverage prices for vessels traveling through the Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz after the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran. War risk insurers on Saturday submitted cancellation notices for policies covering ships moving through the key oil checkpoint, with prices set to raise as much as 50% in the next coming days. The unusual move to submit these notices before trading resumes on Monday underscores the pace of escalation after Iran launched retaliatory strikes against U.S. bases in the Middle East. This is a good example. For a $100 million vessel, this would mean an increase from $250,000 to $375,000 per voyage. Massive increase, which gets passed on to the consumer. So that's going to be felt gas pump. That's going to be felt food products. That's going to be felt with any other product coming from that region that you purchase at the store. You're going to end up paying for that as well. So this is something that does affect us outside of the Middle East as well. And that's not just in the United States. That's in Europe. That's in Australia. That's in Asia. That's in other places as well. So keep that in mind. This is something that does affect us as well. So with that is the coverage that I have for you regarding the Middle East situation as of now. So a lot of it, and I can't stress this enough, a lot of it is just wait and see what happens. So if this is going to be an interesting week, to say the least. And along with that, I can't stress this enough. Be careful where you're getting your information. Be careful what you believe is true. Be careful what you believe is fact. A lot of stuff is going to be coming out, especially for those who watch shows and podcasts like mine. There's going to be a lot of clickbait. We get to start the whole cycle over again about, is this Ezekiel 38? Is this Isaiah 17? Is this Psalm 83? We get to start that whole cycle all over again. The same stuff that they've been rehashing for years, and we're right back to square one again, all because of this. And so that's clickbait. That is sensationalism. There's some really bad dudes out there that post some of the most ridiculous, stupid, inaccurate, and sensational stuff out there, like Amir Sephardi and people like that, that it's clear that they're there to move you in the wrong direction. be careful. That's all I can say, is just be careful. I'll do my best to make sure that you guys are updated with what I can verifiably confirm from here. So I'll do my best for you guys. All right. All right. We also got some other stuff going on. Like anything, if there's a big event and it's flashing like crazy over here, we still need to pay attention to the quiet stuff happening in the other hand. So let's keep an eye on what else is happening. That includes the situation in Cuba. If you guys don't know, there's still Cuba stuff in there. Pretty interesting that this war broke out right when the whole situation with Mexico took place, and we're still trying to get Cuba. Pretty interesting how that works. This is the perfect time for the United States to come in and swoop in and grab Cuba, isn't it? So if you guys don't know, there was a boat of about 10 people heading from Florida to Cuba, and Cuba opened fire on them. So let's take a look at what's going on. This is what to know about the boat shooting in Cuban waters that killed 4. Cuban soldiers confronted a speedboat carrying 10 people as the vessel approached the island and opened fire on the troops, who fired back, killing 4 and wounding 6, according to the Cuban government. The Cuban Ministry of the Interior said that the people aboard the boat Wednesday were Cubans living in the United States and accused them of trying to infiltrate the country to engage in terrorism. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel said Thursday that Cuba does not attack or threaten. We have stated repeatedly, we reiterate it today, Cuba will defend itself with determination and firmness against any terrorist or mercenary aggression that seeks to undermine its sovereignty and national stability. Marco Rubio said that the American government was gathering its own information, including whether the people were United States citizens or permanent residents. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida said it was pursuing answers, though every legal and diplomatic channel is available. Okay, so we have a boat with 10 people in there. 2 Americans. They don't put that in this article, but we'll get to that. There's 2 Americans and 8 Cubans loaded with rifles and Molotov cocktails on a speedboat. And off the shore of Cuba, start firing at Cuban military to try and spark a uprising, a revolution in Cuba. That's really stupid, if I've ever heard that before. I don't think it's as black and white, as they're stating it is. Especially if you go back in history, there is a document, United States government document, that is full of, I believe this was in the 60s, that's full of ideas to start a false flag revolution and regime change in Cuba. And it sounds like this could be possibly could have been one of those attempts to do so. Because I'm not buying the fact that you have 10 people stacking a speedboat going to Florida or going to Cuba and just start opening fire off the coast. That doesn't make any sense. So, pretty interesting. This comes along with this. This is Trump aims to steer Cuba towards greater dependence on the United States. This is the Trump administration move to ease fuel shipments to Cuba's nascent private sector is part of a plan to make the island more reliant on the U.S. for supplies, increasing Washington's leverage to bring about political and economic change. The plan is continuing to take shape, although tensions are running high after a fatal encounter Wednesday between Cuban authorities and a group of 10 Cubans living in the U.S. aboard a Florida-registered speedboat off the island's coast. So the goal with this whole situation is they're trying to make Cuba, of course, we know they've got the blockade where they're not letting any oil in there. They're basically depriving them of energy. Citizens are going without power, without gas, without being able to cook and all that type of stuff. And so they're trying to strangle them out with this oil situation in order to grab a hold of Cuba as a whole. And so that's what they're trying to do. And so Trump hints at friendly takeover of Cuba amid deepening crisis. Says U.S. President Donald Trump suggested Friday that Washington could pursue a quote-unquote friendly takeover of Cuba as the island faces deepening economic strain under a strict U.S. oil embargo and heightened tensions following the overthrow of Venezuela leader Maduro. The Trump administration has imposed a strict oil embargo on Cuba since ousting Havana's key regional backer, bringing the island nation to the brink of economic collapse. They have no money and they have no what? That sounds like Trump. They have no money. They have no anything right now. But they're talking with us and maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba, Trump told reporters as he departed the White House on Friday. On Wednesday, the Cuban Coast Guard said that it had killed 4 people and wounded 6 others on board a U.S. registered speedboat that it said were armed and seeking to infiltrate the country. Havana said all those on board the U.S. boat were Cubans living in the United States, which has received several waves of emigration from the island since 1960s. A U.S. official speaking on condition of being anonymous confirmed that one U.S. citizen was killed and another wounded in the incident. Interesting that that's not being widely reported out there. But there was 2 U.S. citizens and one was killed on there, which again kind of points to maybe being some foul play. There's a little stank to this stink. Says Cuban authorities said a Coast Guard vessel came under fire from the speedboat around 1 nautical mile from Cuba's north shore, adding that assault rifles, handguns, Molotov cocktails, and military-style gear was found on board. Yeah, again, I'm not necessarily buying it. Something doesn't add up. Something doesn't make sense in regards to that. But again, we do know that there is a plan, a policy, an agenda to move forward with the United States taking a hold of Cuba. And so with everything happening in the Middle East, don't lose track of the other plan that they plan on doing, which involves Cuba, which involves Mexico, which involves possibly Greenland again. And so don't lose track of everything else. Again, when one hand is flashing, pay attention to the other one. There's a lot of stuff that happens under the radar during these times. This is another situation. It says U.S. abstention on UN's Ukraine peace vote prompts ex-envoy's ire. So this is pretty interesting. Apparently, the country that's supposed to be bringing everlasting peace to Ukraine abstained on a vote. It says the U.S. abstained from a UN vote supporting a lasting peace in Ukraine. Why is that? Well, that would be because Donald Trump is part of Russia. That would be why. Prompting criticism from President Donald Trump's former Ukraine envoy. A UN vote on a lasting peace in Ukraine, and we abstained. Go figure, Keith Kellogg, who served as special envoy for Ukraine and Russia last year, wrote in a social media post Tuesday, "It's not a business deal, it is war." Actually, for Trump and Putin, it is a business deal. We've shown it. A whole stack of evidence that says this is a business deal between the two of them. The retired general blasted the U.S. for not voting in favor of General Assembly resolution that called for immediate ceasefire, reaffirmed Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and emphasized the importance of the UN Charter on the 4-year anniversary of the Russian invasion. The UN resolution passed with 107 votes in favor, 12 against, including Russia, and 51 abstentions. Under Trump, the U.S. has mostly ignored European and Ukrainian pleas to put more economic and military pressure on Russia. Why is that? Because he is a Russian asset. Trump also sought to pressure Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky into agreeing to let the U.S. benefit from any Ukraine's untapped resources. We've gone over all that stuff. And the U.S. president also expressed interest in joint U.S.-Russia business deals if the war is brought to an end. The Kremlin has also set out proposals for wide-ranging economic partnership with the Trump administration. Again, more stuff that we have gone over just like crazy. We've gone over a stack of that stuff. But now, publicly, the United States is not even voting for peace in Ukraine. They're abstaining from it. Why? Because this administration is connected to Putin. Sticking with Russia, Russia weighs halt to peace talks unless Ukraine cedes territory. Russian officials increasingly consider there's no point to continue U.S.-led peace talks with Ukraine unless Kiev is willing to cede territory to reach a deal, according to people familiar with the negotiations. Talks planned for next week will be decisive in whether or not the sides can agree on terms to end the war. Two people close to the Kremlin said Russia will likely walk away if Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky fails to make concession. And so we're just keeping an eye on this stuff. Keeping an eye on what's going on with the Ukraine-Russia situation, especially now that things kicked off in the Middle East and Israel is becoming very public in the fact that they're saying publicly that the next greatest threat to Israel, to their existence on this planet, is Turkey. And we know Turkey is a NATO member, that the next step to all of this may start bringing about the instability and the collapse of what's going on in the European Union and NATO. And that would justify Russia going in, snatching Ukraine, and then taking further countries from there. And so there's a chain of events that could, I want to make sure I emphasize that, could start happening rather quickly because of what happened in the Middle East. So we definitely need to keep an eye on that. And then we have this. It says, EU to propose permanent ban on Russian oil after Hungary election. And so this is just keeping an eye on Hungary and Slovakia, who are in a part of the EU, but are actually allies of Putin. This is the European Commission will submit a legal proposal to permanently ban Russian oil imports on April 15th, 3 days after Hungary's parliamentary election, according to the EU officials. Two EU officials told Reuters that the timing was designed to prevent the oil ban becoming a major factor in Hungary's election campaign. Hungary and Slovakia are still reliant on Russian oil imports and are strongly opposed to any ban. Now, this is something else to keep watch on. In the April 12th election, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban and his nationalist Fidesz party are facing the biggest challenge to hold the power in 16 years. Keep an eye on what's going to happen in Hungary. Because if Viktor Orban is ousted out of Hungary, I don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but it depends on who goes in there. Russia might lose that allegiance over there. So it's something to keep in mind. I've seen some stuff reporting that Orban's going to float something to cancel the elections, declare some type of emergency over there to cancel them. I don't know about that. Maybe. But this is something to keep in mind because it's Orban who's friendly with Putin. So keep an eye on this situation because this is in April and this could be a factor when it comes to the EU situation, the NATO situation, and the Russia situation. It says the EU has already imposed sanctions on imports of seaborne Russian oil, but it wants to enshrine a full phase out of Russian oil in legislation that would remain in place even if a peace deal in the Ukraine war led to the EU lifting sanctions. The Commission plans to propose the Russian oil ban on April 15th. So April 12th, keep an eye on the Hungary situation, and we'll see what happens. We also have this. Taiwan arms sale approved by Congress, but is delayed as Trump plans to visit Beijing. And it says the Trump administration has delayed announcing a package of arms sales to Taiwan valued at billions of dollars to avoid upsetting Xi Jinping, China's leader, ahead of President Trump's planned trip to Beijing in April, U.S. officials said. The weapons sale, which includes air defense missiles, is an advanced stage. Senior Republican and Democratic lawmakers approved the package after the State Department sent it to them in January for informal review. However, since then, the sales package has languished in State Department, the official said. Administration officials have told some involved in the approval of the sale that the White House ordered agencies not to move forward to ensure that Mr. Trump has a successful summit with Mr. Xi, one official said. Another official said that the package has a total value of about $13 billion compared with the $11 billion sale that Trump administration announced in December. So similar to the sanctions that Congress was imposing on Russia, which Trump stalled those, which are still stalled. He's also stalling an arms deal package, the $13 billion arms deal package that's supposed to go to Taiwan. Trump is also stalling that because he has a meeting with Xi Jinping, who we know he's friends with. So is he also stalling this arms deal, just like he's stalling the Russian sanctions, because he's playing defense for his friends? It's possible. But again, we have another situation here where Trump is playing defense for his globalist buddies, the same two guys that the mainstream media continues to give us the narrative that he's at war with. But yet he continues to play defense for these two guys. And then we got just three more things, pretty quick, but I think it's worth bringing up. First of all, Trump faces 2,000 tariff lawsuits following Supreme Court loss. That's right. They're getting sued 2,000 times, 2,000 lawsuits. In the days since the U.S. Supreme Court declared most of President Donald Trump's global tariffs illegal, more than 100 companies filed new lawsuits, underscoring widespread concerns that the administration won't readily refund the billions of dollars it's already collected. Public companies and household names are joining the clamor. FedEx filed suit on Monday, followed by Dyson, Dollar General, Bausch & Lomb, Brooks Brothers, Sol de Janeiro, USA, units of cosmetic giant L'Oreal, and shoe companies On Holding AG and Skechers USA also filed suit to recoup what they've paid on imports as well. So, yeah, Trump administration is getting 2,000 tariff lawsuits, and probably more is coming with those. How about this one? Judge rules IRS broke the law approximately 42,695 times by sharing confidential data with ICE. Did you guys see this one? Proton Girl, Dollar General, the Dollar General imports products, and so they got charged tariffs for that. Yeah. So judge rules IRS broke the law approximately 42,695 times. Federal judge found that the Internal Revenue Service, which is unlawful and unconstitutional themselves, broke the law approximately 42,695 times. That was just on a Tuesday. That's a joke. By giving confidential information to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. U.S. District Judge Colleen Collar-Cotelli's Thursday ruling sharply rebuked the IRS for disclosing confidential taxpayer addresses to ICE in situations where ICE requests that the information was patently deficient. The ruling found that DHS did not follow the federal law requiring the agency requesting taxpayer address from the IRS to have specifically identified the individual's question. The requesting agency must provide the IRS with the name and address of the person whose information it seeks to obtain. IRS failed to verify that this information had been provided in the majority of the 47,300 DHS requests. The IRS violated the Internal Revenue Code approximately 42,695 times by disclosing last known taxpayer addresses to ICE without confirming that ICE's request set forth the address of the taxpayer with respect to whom the requested return information related to. Collar-Cotelli took it a step further, decrying the IRS's verification process by claiming ICE could have submitted requests with addresses like don't care 12345 or 00000 without being denied the information that the agency was seeking. So even the judge is saying that if ICE even submitted fake addresses that obvious, the IRS still would have given them the information. Guess who's in control of the IRS, by the way? Scott Bessent. George Soros boy? Trump admin dude? Yeah, he's the one in control. So obviously he's going to just say go with it. The judge's ruling was based on a declaration filed by the IRS's Chief Risk and Control Officer, Dottie Romo, which claimed that the IRS had improperly given information on thousands of the 1.28 million people that ICE had requested. Wow. And last but not least, Trump tells committee chairs he backs controversial spy law extension. Congress faces an April 20th deadline to renew the Section 702 surveillance program. President Donald Trump says Congress wants Congress to sidestep internal debates and extend a key surveillance program, and has made that demand directly to key Hill Republicans. At issue is the foreign spy program known as Section 702, which is set to lapse on April 20th. Lawmakers in both parties want to put new restrictions to prevent the intelligence community from searching program data for Americans without a warrant. Trump has instead asked for a straight extension with no changes, according to Senate Intelligence Committee Chair Tom Cotton and 3 other senior lawmakers. This Section 702 is a part of the FISA bill. This is the thing where the FISA bill is all about, it's for national security, it's for foreign surveillance. But Section 702 is the section in there that was discovered a long time ago. Remember Snowden? He said this is the thing that allows them to do warrantless surveillance of us, of American citizens. And Trump not only extended it during his first administration, he expanded upon it. And on this one, he's now saying, no change. I want you to extend it. Remember, this is the guy that's supposedly for the Constitution and doesn't want mass surveillance of American citizens, but yet he's basically saying, do it. Interesting. Trump recently told Speaker Mike Johnson, House Intelligence Committee Chair Rick Crawford, and Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan that he wants a clean extension, according to a congressional aide familiar with the discussion. Trump's backing for a clean extension comes as top White House staffers have been privately lobbying for a clean extension of at least 18 months, including top domestic policy advisor Stephen Miller. Some intelligence community allies have privately floated going even longer, up to 3 years. So this idea that the surveillance is going to stop, not going to happen. It's going to continue. This warrantless surveillance, which includes biometric data and all this stuff, is, what we've been told is part of the globalist agenda. And so Trump, who's an enemy of the globalists, who's trying to eliminate globalism, is going to fight globalism by enacting the very same system that the globalists want. That's what the MAGA groups want you to believe. That's what the Prophecy Mafia wants you to believe. That in order for Trump to fight the globalists, he must enact the very same globalist programs here in the United States. That's how stupid they think you are. Because that's what they teach. That's what they tell you to believe. Oh, guys, the world is in chaos, to say the least. And the kids in the Sandbox are going wild right now. We don't even know what the next 5 minutes is going to hold when it comes to the Middle East situation. That's how fast things change over there. And so we got to be, again, I sound like a broken record, but head on a swivel. We got to have a head on a swivel when it comes to the situation. That not only includes all the waves, the massive waves of bad information that's going to be coming out from the Middle East situation, but that also means we need to keep another eye on the things happening underneath all of that, because now is the perfect time for them to bring in and enact other various policies and agendas and to move forward with other plans while everybody is focused on that. There's also going to be a whole bunch of other stuff that they're going to do under it that usually gets lost because everybody's focusing on the big thing. Especially now, because as Christians and those who watch, who are watchmen and are paying attention, not only to what's happening in the here and now, but watching the foreshadows and the stepping stones to prophetic events that will happen post-rapture into the day of the Lord. This is when the church and the pastors and so on and so forth, they get so tunnel vision. They've already been tunnel vision, but now they get super tunnel vision into one particular thing where they're going to be their only focus, and they're not going to pay attention to anything else that's happening, which is the perfect avenue for Satan to slide things in while the church is preoccupied looking at something else. So this is definitely something to keep in mind. Not only pay attention and vet everything that's coming out from the Middle East, but keep an eye on everything else. But most importantly, the most important thing, of course, is making sure that you have salvation through the Son of God, Jesus Christ. That's the most important thing. With everything that's happening, nothing else matters except getting your soul in the hands of the only one, the Savior, who can bring you eternal life. So if you're somebody who's stopping by because of the topic at hand, but you don't know Jesus and you stuck around till the end, now is the time to give your life to Jesus. And his gospel is as simple as ABC. A is you admit that you're a sinner. The act of repentance, metanoia. It's the changing of mind. It's turning from self to Christ. How can we believe in Jesus Christ as our Savior if we don't know why we need Jesus Christ as our Savior? So it's through repentance that allows true belief in Jesus Christ. You believe that Jesus Christ is the one and only begotten Son of God, that he came down 100% man, 100% God, the God-man, the one and only, and he lived the perfect sinless life. The only one to do so, which means he was the only one qualified to carry the sins of the world upon his shoulders. Carried them to the cross. He took my place upon that cross with my sin. And he was crucified and he died. But because there's power in the blood of Jesus Christ, and he did exactly as he said he would, and exactly as he promised he would, and exactly as he prophesied he would, he defeated death and rose again on the third day. For all who believe in him shall not perish, but live forever in his presence and in his glory. The glory is his. He did it. He completed it. When we place our faith in Jesus Christ, we place our faith in Christ Jesus. We place our faith in his death, burial, and resurrection. We place our faith in the spilled blood. And we place our faith in the completed work upon that cross. That's where we place our belief. And C, as we call upon the Lord, when we receive salvation, we are indwelt with the Holy Spirit, and we are given the gift of prayer that allows us direct access to our Heavenly Father at any moment of any day. And it's an incredible supernatural gift with our incredible, awesome, and just amazing God who wants to hear from us all day long. We say, Lord God, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to see what we are seeing today in these last times. These are crazy, dark, brutal times, with many of us dealing with a wide variety of things. But we are blessed to be able to witness these things, where we can see the foreshadows of your prophecy where we can see the events of this world that are leading to what will eventually be literally the words of your pages coming to life, and where you're going to show yourself to this world again. And it's truly a blessing that we get to see this, Lord. Thank you. We pray, God, give us the strength to get through these days and through these trials that we are dealing with. Give us the eyes to be able to see all that you want us to see in these times, which opens up the ability for us to witness to as many people as we can, to get them the gospel of Jesus Christ. Lord God, you are so good. And we say, Lord Jesus, please come soon. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right. Let's see here. Let's see. We got a boatload of questions. Oh my. Let's see what we can do here. Okay, Mary Lewis, what about the UFO disclosure? Anything worth talking about? No. I've addressed this before. It's another, every few months they pull out the UFO stuff. It's just, it's not worth paying attention to right now. So, it's just, I'm not covering it. I don't see a need to. So I don't think it's worth it. Interesting that they pulled that out right before they attacked Iran, though. Something to think about. Let's see here. Julie B. question: what are your thoughts about the true reason why we went in there? Could it be a distraction for destroying their banking system? I heard that today and it resignated. I don't think it has anything to do with the banking system. No, I don't think that that's the reason why. It's one of those situations, and a lot of people say it's a cop-out. It's not a cop-out. The fact is what's going on in the Middle East right now on a day-to-day thing, the news that's coming out of there, is almost impossible to try and guess what's actually the reason for things, because things change so fast. It's good luck trying to figure out any truth of what's going on. Again, when it comes to the situation in Iran, I don't necessarily know why they went in there. I can come up with a bunch of theories. I can tell you a bunch of theories. It's not really going to do any good. But I gave you one that I think is worth keeping an eye on, that I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on. And that has to do with the Ali guy. There's could be a chance that that's why they want to get in there, is because they want to shift the power to this new guy who's friends with Russia. Trump apparently says that he might want to be working with this guy. And so that can open up an avenue of many different things. I can confirm, though, because I'm still seeing this out there. I can confirm Trump doesn't care about the Iranian people. I'm seeing that all over the place. He cares about the Nigerians. He cares about the American people. He cares about the Iranian people. He doesn't give a crap about any of those people. I can tell you that much. He doesn't care about he doesn't care about us. We're peasants. He doesn't care about the Iranian people. So this idea that Trump's going in there to save the Iranian people, no, that's false. Maybe it has to do with getting this one particular guy in that they want to. Maybe, but I don't know. So again, I could just throw you a whole bunch of theories and possibilities, but the real reason, we just got to wait and see. We'll see what happens. Let's see here. Bilka or Bill Karmensky. Yeah, it's hard when it's all one word. Where's all the money coming from for all these explosions simultaneously? Pakistan on Kabul and Taliban. Trump's Iran attack. Well, we know that there's, first of all, a lot of money that was stacks of money that was given in gold to several Middle East countries. We know that many of those countries are proxy for other rich countries as well. Saudi Arabia, being one, Israel being another one. And then we also know that a lot of these groups are paid by certain Rothschild family who seems to have an unending amount of wealth. So all of that stuff plays a part with those situations, specifically Pakistan and Taliban and stuff. Country Darling, does the Department of War, it's the Department of Defense. Again, Department of War has not been approved by Congress. It's illegitimate. So it is the Department of Defense. Does the Department of Defense announcement regarding the Boy Scouts of America seem reminiscent of the 1933 national movement to you? Yep. I'm glad you brought that up. The whole announcement, Pete Hegseth put out a video. Happens to be, the day before the attack of Iran, saying that the Scouts America is on notice because they want to transform Scouts America into a pipeline for military men. That's what they want to do. And so, yeah, be prepared to start seeing some changes regarding Boy Scouts of America and trying to create a pipeline to turn it into a military pipeline for kids. It's going to happen. David Watson, are there any of our allies involved with the Iran situation? Israel is involved. The Gulf states aren't attacking, they're defending. They're shooting down anything that comes in their direction. But no, as of now, that we know of, it's just the United States and Israel that's doing the offensive. Country Darling asking about that Israeli trade route with India. I think that's the one that you're talking about. That was proposed, I think that was initially proposed back in 2023, and they're still kind of working on it. Is it going to cause any issues with the Gaza one, which has to do with the Babylons? I don't know. I really don't have an answer for that one, so sorry. Patrick Starr, super random, but any thoughts on Kansas revoking the driver's license of transgender people? Do I have a... First of all, driver's licenses are unconstitutional anyways. We're not going to get into the whys that is, but it is. It's because it has to do with violation of our right to travel. But since we have them, if we're going to have them, they need to have the proper information on there. So if you're a transgender person with a driver's license that doesn't have your proper gender on there, yeah, it's illegitimate driver's license. They need to be revoked until the proper information's put on there. So I applaud Kansas for doing it. So yeah, I'm in favor of that. Let's see here. Sipo. Do you think there's a successor for Commandant? Yep, he was already selected a couple weeks ago. He announced his successor a couple weeks ago, so it was already planned, ready to go. Yamara question: is this why Trump renamed Department of Defense to Department of War? I think the Department of War transition has to do with Pete Hegseth trying to compensate for something. I'll just leave it there. Yamara question: how did they penetrate all the way underground to where they said the nuke facilities were located? They never did. It was a PR stunt, and nothing was actually affected, but some collateral damage that doesn't have to do with anything. Okay, let's see. Just a couple more questions. Patrick Starr question: where does Iran get these secret weapons? They're allies that have access to demonic technology. I don't think they're necessarily secret weapons. Like there's some type of weapon that doesn't exist. I don't think that's what they were referencing. I think they were referencing the fact that Iran has weapons that they didn't realize that they had. Because a lot of people think Iran just has these run-of-the-mill lame rockets and stuff like that, which they do. But they were not expecting them to have the munitions that they do. Keep in mind, Iran buys a lot of weapons from places like China and Russia, North Korea. And they're very good at developing obscure weapons. So I think that's just what it is they were not expecting Iran to have these particularly obscure weapons. What does that say? Patrick Stark question: does Trump keep pumping tons of money into the military because we're actually trying to play catch up with the rest of the world? I don't think so. I think the United States weaponry and stuff is top of the class. I do believe that. But I think a lot of it just has to do with just putting money in there because either A, it's something that's going to be required for something, a plan that they want to do in the future, or B, it's to fulfill Trump's ego and make it look like he's, the king of the world through military power and might and stuff like that. So I think it could be either one of those factors. But no, I still do believe when it comes to firepower, it's the usual guys at the top. It's the United States, the China, and the Russia. I still do believe that. So, yeah. All right, guys, that is all we got for questions. It's all we got for tonight. And yeah, usual spiel. If you guys can, like, share, subscribe, get this out to as many people as you can. It's not about views, not about butts and seats, but it is about getting the warning out to people and getting people to Jesus. So if you guys can do me a solid and like, share, subscribe, I would certainly appreciate it. Especially now with YouTube suppressing my channel like crazy. So please like, share, subscribe if you guys can. Also follow along on Rumble and Telegram. Those are my backup channels. If I get booted off YouTube, we'll be back up live streaming over on Rumble. Country Darling, is that a fighting possum? That's my tactical possum. Yeah. I have a tactical possum and a tactical corgi. He's awesome. He's an awesome possum. I love it. But yeah, so follow on Rumble if you guys want to, and then Telegram post updates, announcements, and other little things that I can't necessarily put in video format. So yeah, go ahead and do that if you want to. Best place though, of course, is to bookmark the WretchedWatchmen.com website. That's your one-stop shop to stay up to date on everything that's happening with Wretched Watchmen. You'll find the latest podcasts and live streams, the announcement page, as well as the free book to download and all other stuff as well. So you'll find that on the website. Make sure you guys bookmark that. And last but not least, if you guys like to support this channel and what I got going on, I got donation links down below. CashApp, Venmo, and GiveSendGo. This channel is not monetized. I don't make anything from ads, views, or anything like that. It runs solely off of your guys' generous donations. So if you guys like to support this channel and what I do, those links are below. Thank you guys for your support. Again, you guys are the ones that make this run. You guys are the ones that allow this to be 100% free, no paywalls, subscriptions, and any of that stuff. It's just you guys that sustain this. So thank you for your blessings and your support. I appreciate it. So, all right, guys, that's all we got tonight. Thank you guys for joining me today. Tomorrow is Sunday. Make sure you guys get your wretched, heathenic, misfit booties to church. And yeah. Lord, please come soon. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out. Maranatha.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.